Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I am Jen Bjornson. I am your host. So I really wanted to talk to you today about kind of an aha moment that I had in my own life. And it was really amazing when I started looking at this phrase or this concept. And then I really started diving into my own life and looking at it. So, but before we get into too far down the rabbit hole of that, I have really enjoyed doing this podcast. I really love it. And I genuinely hope that this somehow touches your life. It somehow affects you in a way that is maybe helpful. You know, maybe you're struggling and this gives you just kind of one little nugget that keeps you moving forward, that keeps you getting to a life that you can create happiness and joy and peace in your own life. And the only thing I ask is that if this touches you or this speaks to you in any way, or you know of somebody that you're thinking, you know, I really think this person should hear this. Please share it. Please share it and get the message out so that, which is my ultimate goal, is to help as many people as possible. All right, so today I want to talk about this concept of not making things worse than what they are and not making things better than what they are, but looking at a situation exactly the way that it is. So I realized in my life that there were many, many times that equally I would look at a situation and I could possibly say, oh, that wasn't that bad, or, it could have been worse. And it really was bad. Like, I just wouldn't give it the credit. I wouldn't be honest. I wouldn't be honest with what was happening. And equally on the other side, there were many times that I created it in my head to be so much worse. Whatever the situation I was dealing with, it was so much worse in my head than what it actually was. And the thing that I found is that it was skewering reality so that things were just not rational, and it was messing up the way I would see things. So as an example, I oftentimes, when I would go to do something, I could easily say in my head, this is horrible. This is the worst thing. Oh my gosh, like I cannot believe I have to do this. Oh, I hate this. And looking back now, it really wasn't that bad. It really wasn't that big of a deal, right? Like maybe it wasn't pleasant. Maybe it wasn't the most amazing experience, but I made it so much worse in my brain. And so much worse of a situation because I was drilling it into my head about how bad it was. And then on the flip side, there were many times that I would look at a situation and I would say, oh, it's not that bad. Oh, it's not, it's fine. It could be so much worse. And no, it wasn't a good situation to be in. And I think for me, and maybe this is for you as well, when I had that unrealistic experiences, whether it was one side or the other, as I would go through life, it really skewed my view on things rather than looking at it exactly what it was. And the thing that was interesting is when I started looking at stuff exactly the way that it was. Here are the things that I started noticing. So when I would look at a situation and I'd start saying, oh, this is horrible. Oh God, like this is just the worst, right? And I'd stop myself. After I kind of realized this, I'd stop myself and I'd go, what about this is the worst? Like what about this is so horrific? And then I would start to kind of notice, like, okay, let's say a trip to the dentist, right? It's unpleasant. A good majority of the time, it's unpleasant. Not many people I don't know of any, but maybe there's somebody out there. But the majority of people, I would have to say, when they go to the dentist, they're probably like, okay, not excited about this. However, here we go. This is what we're doing. When I would go, it was like an insane amount of stress and anxiety. And I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole of it, but it's unnecessary. But it was over the top. It was so over the top. And the reality was, is I was just telling myself in my head how horrible it was going to be, how awful it was going to be. Like things were just, it was never going to end well. And I was making the situation so much worse. Instead of saying, okay, this is unpleasant, but I'm going to make it through. One thing I did start doing, so when I'd start looking at it, right, I'd start looking at this idea. And I would look around, let's just kind of keep going with the dentist office. And I started looking around and I thought, there's a whole mass amount of people who go to the dentist and they are not freaking out the way I freak out. And I'm sure, I get it. There are people who freak out. But there are people who genuinely go and it's not that big of a deal. So then I started shifting my idea. And I did, at first, don't get me wrong, I didn't know how to do this. But I also started looking at that there are people that do go to the dentist and it's not a big deal to them. So how do I go from where I'm at now to that person who doesn't freak out? What does that look like? Who do I need to become? What do I need to do to be that person? Right now I'm freaking out and I'm absolutely losing it here in the dentist's office. Why? What does that look like? And who do I have to become? Or what did that person do, or what do they think, so that they walk into the office and it's not that big of a deal. And that's kind of the first step. You kind of have to start recognizing that my thinking isn't correct. It's not correct. Now, it feels correct. It feels honest. It feels like you're like, this is so true. This is my truth and it is happening. And you're have such a deep belief system. I had such a deep belief system that this was how it was. And the first step is interrupting that and going, is it possible to not think this way? Is it possible to not look at this situation this way? And there's a mass amount of people who they don't think that way. So if they can do that, what do I need to do to get to that person? And on the flip side, if I'm in a situation, like I at a time had many people, not many, but I had people around me who they weren't toxic. I wouldn't say they were toxic, but I was giving way more than they were giving me. It was not a beneficial. It was not equal. It did not serve any part. It was very taking. Okay. And I do believe that we need to serve people. That is a whole other thing. This was just strictly, it wasn't a relationship that was give and take. It was, they took. And so I don't want to go as far as to say it was so toxic, it was unhealthy, but it wasn't good. Like it didn't lift me up at all. It was very much, if I was going to be with these people, it was very much like a service. It was very much like they are going to take and I get nothing in return. And sometimes that's okay. I'm not talking about those situations. Sometimes that's okay, but this was not one of those. However, there were plenty of times that I was in those situations and I was like, this is fine. No, they're my friend. No, they get me. And I just had this belief in my head that it was much better than what it was. I had this belief that if I was serving this person, if I was giving, well, now that's a true friendship. That's a friendship right there, is because you just give. My needs don't matter. But this person, me giving, that's being serving. Like I'm being charitable. I'm a good person. And the reality, it was just not good. wasn't horrible, but it wasn't good. But in my head, I was like, no, this is my friend. No, it doesn't matter. I know she said that. She was just joking. It's fine. No, it wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. But in my head, very much had this is what a relationship looks like. This is what a friendship looks like. No. And I did the same thing. I stopped for a while, and I just looked around, and I looked at the situation. And I remember one specific time where we were all in this friend group, and they were making plans, and I didn't want to do this, and I didn't want to involve my kids with it. And that was kind of one of the things, like all our kids were the same age, and it kind of benefited, but at the same time, my kids didn't really like the other kid. Like, it was very forced, and there was a lot, but it was a very forced thing. But it was kind of like, I felt like I had to. And I remember I was sitting there one of these times, and I'm like, I don't want to do this play date. I don't want to do this thing. And I didn't really know how I wanted to respond, so I just didn't really say anything, because I thought, well, I don't really know how I want to respond to this. So I didn't say anything. And then later on, I never agreed to it, but this person was visibly upset because I didn't show up. And later on, I said, I didn't agree to that. But there was kind of that assumption. There was kind of that expectation. And you could easily say I was in the wrong. Maybe, right? Maybe I was in the wrong. But the point is I stopped the behavior of just automatically responding the way I would normally respond. Now, I don't want to say it didn't get messy. It didn't get like this whole blowout thing. But at the same time, it was jarring to the other person, because they just expected me to jump on board, and I just didn't say anything. And then when I said I didn't agree to that, I didn't agree, and I didn't sign up. I didn't sign up for it. I didn't agree to it. And her response was, well, you heard me. And I said, I did hear you. I didn't agree. I said something like, oh, that, I can't remember, something like, oh, that's something we could do. Or I don't remember. That probably sounded like I agreed, but you get my point. The point was, I switched up the response, and it did cause some friction, but at the same time, I stopped just automatically responding the way I was going to respond, the way I'd always responded. And so really the first step is when you start recognizing that you're in these situations, whether you make them better or make them worse, but you don't want that response. You don't want that result, right? And in order to get that result, you're responding in a certain way. So stop responding. And this is going to get weird. It's going to get messy. It's going to look so uncomfortable at times, because as you just step back from these situations, people expect you to behave a certain way. And when you don't behave that way, everybody's looking at you like, what are you doing? Are you mad? Are you upset? Are you this? Are you that? And you're like, no, I'm just figuring out what I want. I'm figuring out how I want this to turn out. I'm figuring out the result, because the result I've been getting, I don't want that anymore. And you don't necessarily have to tell the person that, but this is what I frequently say in my head. I still use this to this day. There have been situations that I find myself in, and I'm going, oh, this is wild. Now that I'm finally seeing how really it is, how it truly is, because for so long, I have made it in my head a certain way. Oh, well, it has to be this way. Oh, well, it has to be that way. Oh, well, I have to respond this way. And when you stop and you're like, okay, this is the result I'm going to get. This is how I'm going to feel with that result. What do I want? And that brings us to the second part, which is, who do I have to become to get a different result? Who do I have to become? And what do I have to change to get the result, a different result and an actual result that I want? And I'll be really honest. Sometimes I get started on this whole thing, and sometimes I do know the result. I'm getting this result, right? And I want this result. Sometimes I know. And then I have to figure out, okay, what do I have to do? What do I have to say? What are my actions to get this specific result? And sometimes I get into a situation and I'm like, whoa, I don't like anything about this. And I'm the type of person, I have said this over and over again, if you don't know your energy type, please, 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 please go listen to Carol Tuttle, Energy Profiling, obsessed with it. But I am a type of person where I go inward. And so in a situation, I am looking around and I not freeze, but I go very internal or inward. And I internally think, I am not wanting this. So then I'm looking around the room and I'm like, okay, what is the reality here? What is the reality? What is happening? What is my part? How do I play into that? What are other people's parts? What are they playing into that? And now, what do I want? And I'll be very, very honest, there are sometimes I genuinely have no idea what I want. And the only thing I know is what I don't want. And I don't want the result that I've always gotten year after year after year. And sometimes that's all I have to go on. That's it. And that is an interesting concept because you walk away from a situation and you're going, I don't want that, but I don't know what I want. And you can't move until you know what you want. That's not true. You actually can move. You can sloppily move because you're like, do I want this? Oh, I don't know. Do I want this? Well, maybe. Do I want this? I don't know. And you're kind of just fumbling along. I really hope this concept is, you're grasping this concept, because when I first understood this has truly taken me years and years to really kind of grasp this idea. And first it was recognizing that I was looking at things in an unrealistic way. And then it moved into, what do I want and what do I don't want? And sometimes what I don't want is more powerful than what I do want. But you can't just keep moving away from what you don't want. It's helpful, and sometimes it's the first step, and that's great. But you can't just keep moving away from what you don't want and get to what you want. You have to realize what you want. You're not just going to magically get there. I haven't. Good for people if they do, but I have never done that. I've not just magically ended up where I want. It has been, I look at what I don't want, and I know I can cross that off the list, and then I'm looking at what I want. A really good example of this is in my relationships, not just my marriage, but in relationships. There have been plenty of times where I'll use my husband as an example. Him and I, we will be in a situation and he makes me mad. Okay, I am now a person who totally believes I don't think anybody can make me mad, but in this situation, he makes me mad, right? Yeah, he's making me frustrated. It's him. It's not me. He's the problem. And now I have realized what I do in that situation is I'm realizing the behavior that's happening, I don't want. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel this way towards him. I don't want this situation. I want to stop whatever this weirdness that's happening. I want to stop getting upset because he said something or he made a look. And I think this is actually the most recent thing where I've had to look at what I want and what I don't want. And that is, he said something or he made a look, right? And I instantly stop, this takes training, but instead of just biting his head off and instead of losing it on him, I instantly stop and I think, okay, something he said, some way he looked, something happened, and it created something I don't want. Now, I don't know what I want, but I know I don't want that. And I start investigating it. And this is where it comes down to, typically, it comes down to those 6 needs. And it always, for me, it's always come back to those 6 needs: variety, consistency, love, connection, growth, significance, contribution. And typically, what I find is his look, his tone, whatever he said, it makes me feel disrespected, makes me feel insignificant. And then I go to, I don't want that. I don't want to feel disrespected. I don't want to feel insignificant. So how do I fix that? So then we go to, all right, how do we fix it, right? Like, now we know what we don't want. Now we know what we do want. I want to feel significant in a relationship. I want to feel connection in a relationship. I want whatever it is you want, right? Now, once you've figured out what you don't want, we're figuring out where we're headed. The best thing I've ever found is either energy healing or hypnotherapy. Now, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of other types of modalities, like there's the rapid eye movement, there's just talk therapy, I am such an advocate on whatever is going to get you past that. I'm a huge advocate. But the thing that I have found is that so many people just try to willpower their way through it. They just try to, oh, well, okay, like, I'm just going to push through it. I love so many people in the self-development world, but I think one of the people that I think does this really, really well is David Goggins, where he just genuinely willpowers his way through a majority of stuff. And it's amazing. It is. Like, nobody's going to say David Goggins isn't amazing. He's amazing. But I do think there's some stuff we can't willpower our way through. And there's no reason to willpower your way through it, because there's so many better methods to get through that. And these emotional things, I think, are a really, really good example. I think you want to run the mile in 6 minutes or less. I think, yes, you're going to have to willpower your way through it. I think you want to, rock climber, like certain things, do 75 hard. Yes, there is a certain amount of willpower. You just have to push through. I don't care how much embrace the suck, push through it. I truly believe what I have found for myself, for anybody I've ever worked with, in most situations, when it comes to this type of stuff, this internal turmoil that's happening, the internal struggle, most of the time, willpower does not work. You have to find a way to work through the emotion, to work through the internal turmoil of what's the story, the mindset, the negative belief that is going on in your head. And that is a huge part of this. It's great to find what you want and what you don't want. It's amazing to stop and recognize what is happening. Wait, am I looking at this the right way? Am I putting, like, I'm putting it so much worse than what it actually is. That's amazing. But if you want real change to where you can start to shift that mindset, I am such a firm believer in energy healing, hypnotherapy. Find something, meditation. If meditation does it for you, that is an amazing way to get past it. So these are the things that when you start to stop, take a look around, take an inventory, figure out what you want, figure out what you don't want. Look at exactly the way that it is. Look at your relationships exactly the way that it is. I know people have insinuated, I know people have given you a look that makes you think that person doesn't like me, or that person thinks this of me. I get it. We all have those people that we're uncomfortable with, or we think they're looking at us a certain way, or we have relationships where like, oh, this is what they mean. But they've never actually said that. They've never actually said that. Maybe some of them have. My point is, look at it exactly the way that it is. If they've never said it to you, if you're in a relationship, friendship, romantic, anything, if they've never said it to you, then you don't know for sure if that's what they're thinking. And if they have said it to you, and you know, no, that's true, this person does not like me, great. Now you know they don't want to be in your life. You don't want to be in their life. Why would you want to be in somebody's life that doesn't like you? Why? Why would you do that to yourself? So now you both agree. This person doesn't like me. I really don't want to be in the life with when people don't like me, right? And I get it. There are certain situations. But the point is if you know the absolute truth, now you can start doing something about it. How do you want it to look? How do you want it to be? If that person doesn't like you, let's say you're in a family situation. You don't like somebody, they don't like you. But you know you're going to see each other at weddings, funerals, like you know it. How do you want it to turn out? What do you want it to look like? And we've got to stop with these stories of like, well, I can't do anything about it because it's always going to look like this. Same with your health. I am a fanatic. I struggled so much with my mental health and my physical health. And there was a point where I said, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm going to figure out a way to fix it. And almost every disease I have ever looked up, whether it's been for myself, when for somebody else, any symptoms or diagnoses, diseases, and health issues, I have found somebody who has healed themselves in every symptom, every disease, every health problem I have ever looked up. I found somebody who has healed themselves, whether with energy healing, hypnotherapy, diet, exercise, you name it. I have seen people heal themselves from miraculous things. And if your health is the problem, go after that. Figure it out. What do you want? What do you not want? Who do you have to become to get what you want? It's the same with finances. Finances, there is a mass amount of information on how to start a business, how to market a business, how to start a blog, how to start a side hustle, how to get better in this. The amount of certificates that are available for free. Go get a certificate so you can better your career, so you can do this, so you can do that. It is insane. All it takes is figuring out what you want, what you don't want. And when the voice comes in your head that you can't do it, you're not enough, it's not, oh, we don't do that in this family. Who do you think you are? You're going to embarrass us. We don't do that. Oh, look at you. Don't you think you're amazing? When those voices come in, whether it's for your health, whether it's for finances, whether it's for relationships, it doesn't matter. Get them out. Stop willpowering your way through it. Remove them with, I love energy healing and I love hypnotherapy. I have on this podcast, I have done meditations. I've recorded meditations and recorded hypnotherapy for different stuff. Go look at, totally free. Go find something that works. All right. I love you guys. I love doing this. And I trust that this information was helpful for you. So please share it if you can think of anybody who is struggling with their mindset, struggling. Maybe they're a person that you're around and they're just always making things like, this is the worst. This is horrible. And this would really help them out. All right. You guys have an amazing, amazing day. Love ya, and we'll see you later.